It is here. We made it. NFL football is finally here. We have officially made it into week 1 of the 2021 NFL season. The Dallas Cowboys play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Thursday night. I'm super excited. I'm sure you guys are super excited. But before the season officially kicks off, I wanted to make a video running through and highlighting specifically for Dynasty Leagues some waiver wire players that I think could be available on your waiver wires that are definitely worth picking up right now before the season actually starts, and these players potentially rise a lot in fab value, or maybe other managers in your league pick them up before you. We don't want that to happen, so I've made a list of 4 players that I believe could rise in value or could have pretty significant production in 2021 that you could find on your Dynasty waiver wire as of right now. So let's get right into the video. The first player that I want to highlight that could be on your Dynasty waiver wire right now is actually very relevant to today's news as well. And we're going to be talking about Tony Jones, running back for the New Orleans Saints, who is now the RB2 now that the New Orleans Saints have actually released Latavius Murray because he didn't want to take a pay cut. So they now are running into 2021 with obviously Alvin Kamara as the RB1 and Tony Jones now as the RB2. And Jones actually did extremely well in the preseason with his run. He went 7 for 82 and 1 with another 5 receptions for 38 yards receiving against the Baltimore Ravens in his first game, and then went 5 for 24 against the Jacksonville Jaguars, leading the team in rushing yards and yards per carry and outperforming Latavius Murray in that game as well. Now, what's great about Jones is that he fits the mold of a handcuff with also potential flex appeal, because we've already seen as the RB2 with Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray had 9 games over the past 2 years with double-digit fantasy points while playing with Alvin Kamara, but also his biggest appeal was his production when Kamara actually missed games. Back in week 7 in 2019, Latavius Murray rushed for 26 carries, 119 yards, and 2 touchdowns, while also adding 5 receptions for 31 receiving yards. And then Murray followed that up in week 8 with 21 carries, 102 yards, and a rushing touchdown, while also adding 9 receptions for 55 yards and a receiving touchdown that week as well. When Alvin Kamara missed week 17 in 2020, it wasn't Latavius Murray, it was actually Ty Montgomery who got the majority of the workload. And he went for 18 carries for 105 rushing yards, and then Taysom Hill actually stole the rushing touchdown from Ty Montgomery. But that rushing volume was definitely there, and Ty Montgomery was able to capitalize on that with over 100 yards rushing. Now, granted, those are the only 3 games that Alvin Kamara has missed over the last 2 years, but if that does happen, you have an auto start at your running back position on that week in Tony Jones. So even if you can buy 1 week of top 20 running back production off of the waiver wire right now, that's 100% worth all of the fab that you spent on Tony Jones, and he is definitely a must-add for me if he is on your waivers right now before the season starts. The second player on this list, are kind of like a 1B because I'm going to be doubling up on Saints players here, is actually another player that I've already talked about before, but that is Juwan Johnson, Saints tight end as well, who's a wide receiver converting to the tight end position for the first time this year in 2021. Adam Trautman has largely been one of the favorites from the fantasy community and industry to be this year's breakout tight end or late round darling at the tight end position, but so far has been a major disappointment in the preseason because he's been working primarily as a blocking tight end, being almost worked exclusively as a blocking tight end. And that was before even the foot injury a couple weeks ago, where Trautman was carted off of the field. Saints beat writers have also said that Juwan Johnson was already pushing for the starting tight end role before the Adam Trautman injury, and he was being utilized, or being viewed at least, as a potential replacement to Jared Cook to fill the void as the pass-catching tight end in the Saints offense, and especially fill the void on a team that is lacking in playmakers and pass catchers, with Michael Thomas sitting out for potentially up to half of the 2021 NFL season. So there's a very real possibility that Juwan Johnson gets a really good opportunity in week 1 to be the starting tight end and the main pass-catching tight end in the Saints offense. And with Jameis Winston chucking the ball all over the place, you know, it's actually a very good possibility that Juwan Johnson could be like a lighter version of Logan Thomas this year, who kind of fills a necessary void on his team as a pass catching tight end, who could see potentially a lot of volume that could make him very valuable for fantasy. And again, if he's on your waiver wires, he's probably not going to be all that super cheap if he is already on your waiver wire right now, because a lot of people still don't really know about Juwan Johnson. So you could beat everybody else to him on the waivers and get him right now before the season actually starts. The third player on this list is, again, very relevant to recent news and is actually the biggest waiver wire name on this list in today's video, and that is new Falcons running back Wayne Gallman. And yes, he is on some of your dynasty waiver wires out there because he's actually on one of mine right now and I'm trying to win him. So Wayne Gallman can definitely be on your dynasty waivers that you need to prioritize him and go pick him up and spend a whole bunch of fab to be able to get him. Maybe not all of it, but definitely a good amount, if not the majority of your remaining fab, to go out and get Wayne Gallman off of your waiver wire, because he is legitimate competition to Mike Davis now. That was one of the big positives that everybody saw with Mike Davis in this Falcons running back room, was that there really wasn't any competition to him, and we saw him produce in the Carolina Panthers offense last year. So he was kind of just like the guy who was filling in that role and could potentially just be another James Robinson because there's really nobody else behind him. But now Wayne Gallman is a legit competition to Mike Davis in that role. And a lot of people want to say, well, neither one of them are really all that good. And while that might be true, that is still a possibility that Wayne Gallman is, just a little bit better than Mike Davis and can potentially win out and win this starting role. And we've actually seen Wayne Gallman be a very good fantasy running back as well. Actually, last year from weeks 7 through 14, starting as the starting running back for the New York Giants with Saquon Barkley being out with the ACL injury, Gallman averaged 15 carries, 70 yards, and 0.9 rushing touchdowns per game, and was actually the RB7 over the 8-game stretch last year from weeks 7 through 14. And again, on a horrific New York Giants team, he was still able to produce as a top 10 running back over nearly half of the season, right there, right in the middle for fantasy football. And the Atlanta Falcons can also support a top 15 running back as well in 2021, and they actually did it last year, because from weeks 1 through 11, Todd Gurley averaged 16 carries, 61 yards, and 0.9 rushing touchdowns in this Atlanta Falcons offense last year, and was the RB13 over the first 11 weeks of the season in 2020. So if Todd Gurley can do it, and Wayne Gallman had already done it on a really bad New York Giants team, it's absolutely very much a possibility that Wayne Gallman can just do it again in this Atlanta Falcons offense if he takes over the starting role, or if Mike Davis actually does end up getting hurt and misses a significant amount of time. Gallman could be a legit RB2 for your team. And if you can buy that production off of the waiver wires, that's basically like what you were able to do last year with Mike Davis, was buying that production, buying an RB2 off of the waiver wires. That is huge value for your dynasty team and could potentially be the difference for you between making the playoffs or being a middling playoff team to actually winning a fantasy championship. And then the final player I have on this video is actually the least known out of all four of these guys. You might not even know who it is. I don't really even know how to pronounce his last name, but we're going to give it a shot. And that is Indianapolis Colts wide receiver Mike Strachan. Indianapolis Colts wide receiver Mike Strachan. But Mike Strachan could absolutely be a guy that could be on a lot of dynasty teams, halfway through the year or a quarter of the way through the year, that you can get right now 100% free and beat everybody else to him off of the waiver wires. And it could be kind of like a do-over for those of you who missed out on Kenny Golladay back when he was free in 2017. Now, Strachan was a 7th round pick by the Indianapolis Colts just in this year's draft as well, and is a wide receiver out of Charleston University. He did dominate in college, granted at a Division II school, but he did dominate, and there are a lot of other positives as well, including the fact that he's 6'5", 230 pounds, and runs a 4.46 40-yard dash. So he's absolutely a beast when it comes to that size-speed combination at the wide receiver position. He also produced well in the preseason as well, combining for 10 receptions for 130 yards over the 3 Indianapolis Colts games. And then there's also the fact that this wide receiver depth chart for the Indianapolis Colts is really lackluster right now. T.Y. Hilton just had neck surgery and was placed on the injured reserve with no real timetable for his return, even with the fact that he is also 31 years old. So, behind Michael Pittman, you have right now Zach Pascal, who I think is actually a very good NFL wide receiver. I like him. I got the chance to play Fortnite with him and talk with him, so he is pretty cool, and I do like Zach Pascal. And then there's also Paris Campbell, who had a lot of potential coming out of Ohio State. Some people still really can't let go of Paris Campbell, but he has been injured every single year and just has never really lived up to expectations just because of all those injuries and stuff. And then they also have Ashton Doolin, who's primarily a special teamer. And then it's Mike Strachan, who is the wide receiver 5 on the active roster right now. So if you get Strachan now, again, you can get him 100% free, and he could have an opportunity even in week 1 to see the field on, like I said, this depleted Indianapolis Colts wide receiver team, and just see what you have in Mike Strachan. Because worst case scenario, you get him for free now, and you can just drop him later in season for somebody who's more valuable or a better waiver wire ad if he's not doing anything. But best case scenario, you have a legit NFL role player and potentially a wide receiver 2 on his own team that maybe you can flex a play during bye weeks or injuries, kind of like what we were doing last year when Keenan Allen missed games and you were playing Tyron Johnson or Jalen Guyton. Like, that could be Mike Strachan at some point this year, and you got him for absolutely free before the NFL season. And he could be that player that you add him now, he actually ends up doing something, and then all the other people are like, how did you know who that guy was? And you just kind of look like a winner. That's what Dynasty is all about, is finding these guys, these gold mines that nobody else knows about. You could find him. You could do that. You could look super smart in front of your leagues and be that kind of guy. And that is what Mike Strachan could do for you on your Dynasty roster. So those are 4 players I believe should be picked up off of your Dynasty waiver wire if they are available in your Dynasty leagues. Maybe you already have them. Congratulations if you do. But if they are available, I would definitely be looking to add them before the season actually starts in this week's waiver wire run for your Dynasty League, because they could be picked up or be worth more later on, and you could be getting somewhat of a discount on these players if you pick them up this week and earlier than everybody else. I will be doing a video like this every single week, so if you're not already, please subscribe to this DLF YouTube channel, because our in-season content is going to be bumping. It's going to be awesome. We have a lot of amazing other people contributing to the DLF in-season content for the YouTube channel, as well as the written content on the DLF site. So if you're not subscribed to the DLF YouTube channel and you're not a premium subscriber to the DLF website, I invite you to do both and be a part of this community and learn a lot of information from all the amazing writers and videographers that DLF has to offer on both sides of the content spectrum. If you would like to watch a video on my league winners for 2021 NFL fantasy football, you can click right up here and find that video. And with that all being said, guys, thank you all so much for watching. We'll catch y'all later.